Hello students, this is Mrs. Beardsley, your pre-algebra teacher, and today we are going to be doing lesson 1.1, evaluating expressions. So if you have not had your parents watch the welcome the welcome video, or you were not on the Zoom call, you need to watch that so that you can see how I want your notes taken. You should have a spiral notebook, and this will be your title, what you're seeing right now, lesson 1.1, evaluating expressions. So we're going to go through these notes that you need to be writing down, and then I will assign you your homework at the end. For future references, I may be using this video for other classes and other years. This is for the year 2021. If you're watching it outside of that year, in a future year, then the homework may be different, but the lesson will still be the same. So just pay attention to if I tell you something different for homework in your class. Okay, so we're going to be evaluating expressions today. So a numerical expression is a combination of mathematical terms that names a number. So here are some numerical expressions: 9 plus 6, 15 minus 7, and even something like a little bit more complicated, like 17 minus 8 plus 3. Okay, so these are all numerical expressions. So these are different than like what an equation would be, and we'll talk more about those later. So these are just numbers, right? Okay, so you evaluate a numerical expression by finding the number that it represents. So in order to find one of these, the answer to one of these, you would just either add here, this one you would subtract, and of course this one you would do both, right? But what if you, So let's evaluate this last one that says both. So if they were to ask you to evaluate this, that means to answer it. So evaluate, you'll see that in your instructions in your book sometimes. That just means to find the answer, right? Find answer. Sorry, I should put that bigger. So to find this answer, we're going to do our parentheses first. If you remember, your order of operations was PEMDAS, and parentheses always go first. So if I do my 8 plus 3, then 8 plus 3 is 11. And now I do 17 minus 11, and the answer is 6. And when we work in algebra, we work down, just like I did here. You work down the problem. We don't go across. So we're not going, don't write this down, but we're not going to do this and then say that equals 17 minus 11 and then say that equals 6. We're not going to do that, okay? We're going to work the problem all the way down. So the equal sign, even though there's not one, is kind of like just moving down one means that's equal, okay? Okay, so now these are numerical expressions. So now let's talk about algebraic expressions. So algebraic expressions usually have a variable in them, which we will talk about variables in just a minute. Algebraic expressions are things like n plus 6, x minus y plus 7. Okay, so these have a variable in them. Okay, and we'll talk about what a variable is. A variable is a letter such as n, or x or y, used to represent a number in an algebraic expression. And later it will be used to represent a number in an algebraic equation. So it's not only in an expression. And when we use variables, we try not to use variables like O, or letters like O, We do use X, but usually when we do X, we do it kind of like a cursive X so that it doesn't look like a time sign. So, and also we will quit using the time sign once we get to algebra. And we'll talk more about that in later classes. Okay, so let's go through what you're going to be doing today. So I did not write this correctly. This one should have been example 1. Sorry. So let's move down here to example 2. So in example 2, it says evaluate. Remember what evaluate means? It just means to answer the problem. So evaluate n plus 6 for n equals 8. So this might sound funny or look funny to you. Evaluate n plus 6 for n equals 8. It's just telling me that my n is going to be 8. So in here, I'm going to put 8 instead of n. And then I'm going to solve the rest of the problem. So you see how the n just changes to the 8. So now I say 8 plus 6 is 14. And that's my answer to the problem. That's what you do when you evaluate it. Okay, so the value is 14 if n is equal to 8. Okay, if they say n is equal to a different number, then it's going to change this value, right? Okay, so let's look at one that maybe has more than one variable. So remember that n was the variable. That's what we call a variable because it can change. I could have said, what is this answer if n is equal to 6? Or what is it if n is equal to 100? So that letter is changing, or it can change. So let's do example 3. Example 3 says evaluate x minus y plus 7 for x equals 9 and y equals 3. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing we did up there. We're going to take what n equals, which is 9, and we're going to put it in place of x. And what, let me change the color here, and what y equals, and we're going to put that in place of y. So on here it says that x is 9, so I'm going to put the problem just how it was. Actually, I like to kind of color code things here. Okay, and then the x is going to be 9, and we said our y was 3, and then the rest of the problem just stays the same, right? So now I solve this. Do my parentheses first, just like we talked about a little while ago. So that's going to be 6 plus 7, and 6 plus 7 is 13. So that's my answer. If for this problem, if x is 9 and y is 3, then my answer is 13. Now, if they tell me a different x and a different y, then my answer is going to change, right? Okay, so this is what you're doing today, is you're just putting numbers into the variables. They're going to tell you the number for the variable, and you're going to solve it. Now, some of them will give you different variables just like this, and some will have in your instructions to use the same numbers for every single problem. So make sure that you read instructions carefully. So if you are doing this, remember in 2021, your homework is going to be to do pages 4 and 5, numbers 1 through 31, odds only. Remember, odds are like 1, 3, 5. Okay, so those are the ones you're doing, are only the odds for your homework. Okay, and that's it for this lesson. Thanks for watching.